So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our GNP info session of 2021. So for the sake of time, we're just going to go ahead and get started. Many thanks to Dana for being our admin person behind the scenes. So my name is Shelby Kruzak. I am the Community Relations Director with Lutheran Social Services of the National Capital Area. So for those of you who are newer to our organization, LSS has several programs and services, but is known for being one of the largest refugee resettlement agencies in the DMV. We're over 100 years old and have a long history of walking alongside refugees and immigrants in this area and working with community partners and faith-based communities to make that happen. So as we're looking ahead into, farther down into 2021 and beyond, we're just really humbled and inspired by the outpouring of interest and support that we've seen from congregations and groups and individuals in wanting to welcome and uplift our refugee and immigrant neighbors, and all in the midst of a global pandemic. So we're just really, really grateful for your interest in being on this call and for learning.
I'm Mamadou Sai, I'm the VP of Operations at Lutheran Social Services. I've been with LSS for the past 16 years. I'm myself a former refugee. I was resettled in 2000 in Arlington, Virginia. Prior to being resettled, I was in Senegal, where I spent 11 years, part of those in a refugee camp, and then joined LSS 16 years ago as a job developer. And I've been privileged over the past several years to have been part of over 5,000 refugees that have been resettled through LSS in the Virginia, Maryland, and DC. I wanted to start off with two numbers. In 2016, the US refugee admission number, the ceiling, was set at 85,000. That year, the US resettled 84,994. So we were off by 6 refugees to hit the ceiling of 85,000. That the very next year, the Obama administration had planned to resettle 110 refugees. The change in administration that year created a huge switch. We saw the number of refugee admission ceiling plummet. We went from 85,000 refugees ceiling in 2016 to 15,000 refugees in 2021. So that means a drop of almost 83% of refugees numbers. Now, when refugees numbers are that low, it impacts the US resettlement program, which is a public-private partnership in many ways. I'm just gonna focus on 2 of them. One is what we call the overseas processing, because the refugees that arrive in the United States had to be vetted overseas, had to be processed, has to go through cultural orientation before they are assigned to a resettlement agency on the domestic side. On the domestic side, there is a network of several agencies, national and local agencies, that are part of the resettlement web. And so when refugees numbers were set very low with the previous administration, the overseas infrastructure was completely depleted. Many of the organizations that are processing refugees had to repatriate their personnel. Many of the circuit rides that were happening were not happening. And as a result, the pipeline that feeds into the refugees were narrowed, if not completely dried up. On the domestic side, many of the seasoned staff members that have worked over years to build this program exited the US refugee resettlement program for other fields. As a result, we saw the numbers, many sites were closed, many resettlement agencies lost major fundings, and as a result, their ability to resettle high numbers were impacted. With the current administration, there is hope that we will see those numbers start to climb back up for this fiscal year or the remaining of this fiscal year. So let me just remind here that the fiscal year for the federal government starts on October 1st, And in October 2020, the US resettled one individual, one, from El Salvador. And through January of this year, we have resettled 1,403 refugees. The goal, even if the goal was to resettle 15,000 refugees under the previous administration, the current pace would not set us to reach that number. So what we are hoping is that with the new administration, we will see an increase in refugees numbers. Now, it is expected and projected that the US will resettle around 62,500 refugees by the end of this fiscal year. Now, if we take that half of the fiscal year is gone, for us to reach that number, we will need to resettle an average of maybe 10,000, 15,000 refugees for the remainder of the fiscal year. The likelihood of that happening is very slim, although there are some optimistic folks out there that think that the US will be able to reach that number. And that will be a huge increase from the ceiling of 15,000. Currently, we're still waiting on the president to sign the presidential determination, which will reset the number of refugees that the US will resettle for the remainder of the fiscal year. So that has not been signed yet. So we're still operating under the previous presidential determination, which was 15,000 refugees. For FY 2022, it is planned that the US will set the ceiling to 125,000 refugees. I think it is important to remind us all that the US has not hit 100,000 refugees since 1994. So for almost over a quarter century, we have not reached that number. Even when we hit 85,000 refugees in 2016, that was far from the numbers that we have seen back in 1994. So this would be certainly a huge increase. And as a result, it would means that the overseas processing and the overseas infrastructure has to be pumped up and rebuilt and strengthened, as well as the domestic side of resettlement. Resettlement cannot exist without welcoming communities. And resettlement in the United States has several partners, but the backbone of the US resettlement program is certainly congregations. Before the involvement of the US federal government, congregations were part of the resettlement, and they are the one that spearheaded this program up until the Refugee Act of 1980. LSS has a history and a tradition of working with congregations, all faith, all denominations, as part of our resettlement program. Through our Good Neighbor program that we revamped in 2016, and we were able to resettle over 400 refugees that were touched by one or several congregations. And it is in that spirit that we decided that it makes sense that we reach out to our congregational partners and rebuild, or strengthen that partnership so that we can gear up for those high numbers. At LSS Local, we are looking at several ways to be able to increase our capacity or our growth for FY 2022. We're looking at expanding in terms of geographical reach. So that means we will be creating new sites in Maryland. We're looking at a site in a couple of counties where we think the local communities and the support system that exists in place could support additional refugees, as well as we expecting a higher number to be resettled through our current sites, and that's in Del City, Fairfax, and Hyattsville. And those refugees will be, the area has been a primary site for SIVs, special immigrant visa holders, but we also expect some new populations that have been prevented from being resettled under the previous administration that we think now could get an opportunity to be resettled. Now, it is always important to mention that resettlement is not the primary option available to refugees. It is the last resort for refugees. The UNHCR set the number of refugees at over 80 million. It is less than 1% of those individuals that will get a chance to be resettled. The first option and the most desirable, yet the least likely to occur when someone crosses an international border and becomes refugees, is what we call a safe repatriation, returning to their country of origin. If that option is not viable or fades away, then the second option is an integration in the first country of asylum. That means the first country they fled to. And it's only when those two options are no longer viable that resettlement is explored as a third option. Of the 80 million refugees around the world, the vast majority of them, 85%, live in developing countries. So it's a very slim number of individuals that will get a chance to be resettled. And it's a much tinier portion of those that will be heading to this area. But resettlement cannot happen without welcoming communities and without the support of communities. And as I always reiterated, refugees are not refugees of the agencies that resettle them. They are refugees of the communities that welcome them.
So we have reception and placement services at LSS for many of our clients. So reception and placement is a 3-month-long program that provides core services for refugees when they first arrive. So that could be anywhere from a home setup, so having all of the furnishings in their home when they arrive, like kitchen supplies and linens and kind of the basics for their apartment. Doing a health screening with a case manager, helping enroll their parents in ESL, helping enroll the kids if they have kids in the public school system, doing a cultural orientation, and helping the family sign up for things like public benefits. These are things that are core services in the first 90 days that are really important for a refugee family when they arrive. And then we have a lot of other types of support services for usually up to 5 years for that family. So that could be employment services, health support, K through 12 support. So how the co-sponsorship, how the GNP program really fits into this is having a group of people. So that could be a congregation, that could be a family, that could be another group. What we see is a lot of small groups or a lot of congregations as a whole really being matched up as a co-sponsor with a refugee family that is newly arriving. So they can provide that home setup. They can be the ones to put all of the amazing furniture and kitchen supplies and just all of the things that we want, that we need for families when they arrive, to have that in the apartment. For example, a meal, groceries, so that they're ready to welcome the family. So then beyond the home setup, the GNP could also have the option to provide adjustment support for that family for 6 months or 1 year. So for that could look like doing English conversation practice, helping maybe one of the parents or both of the parents with the job search or recertification process, helping them learn their new community, helping them find the public library, the closest library, and help them get a library card. Like as simple as some of these basic things, they can really make a huge difference. So GNPs can be not just friends for these families, but also as mentors and advocates, and really helping them navigate their new community and new systems here. So in many cases, refugee families have had to leave their own community in their home countries and have been uprooted from that. And so the GNP congregation or group can really serve to be that new community and welcome and support them. So the program is tiered or scaffolded. We call them different levels. That can be really individualized based on the congregation's interests and their capacity and commitment, as well as the family's needs and goals. So kind of an overview of the process is, you could say that you're interested, we could schedule a call with you, we'll have you, fill out an interest form, and then get you plugged into some training resources, some GNP resources, and then help you get trained. We go through some quick volunteer background checks to make sure everyone on your core team is ready to go for anyone who's going to be directly working with the family. And then we will, once a family arrives, we would let you know, and you could have the decision of whether you want to be matched with that family based on the geographic area and things like that. And then that would really begin your GNP journey. So we're just really excited for your interest, and we would definitely give you all support along the way to make that happen. So we've been able to adapt the program during COVID-19 so that we are following all health and safety guidelines. We are going to be talking about kind of the best practices around setting up apartments during COVID-19 at our next GNP info session. But we just wanted to let you know that we do have opportunities to work with families virtually, as well as do home setups virtually and safely during the pandemic. So we can still welcome and support refugee families to the area while making sure that we're all safe.
I'm Taliba Hassan. I'm Vice President of the Muslim Association of Virginia. We run Darul Noor Islamic Community Center that's at the border of Woodbridge and Manassas, Virginia. Both Darul Noor and Congregation Near Shalom are members of a bigger community organization called Unity in the Community. It's a grassroots organization here in Prince William County. Unity in the Community over the years has had several presentations from Lutheran Social Services. And about 2.5 years ago, they made a presentation to Unity in Community, and both Near Shalom and Darul Noor were there. And a few days later, Rabbi Elizabeth Goldstein gave me a call, because I'm also chairing the Interfaith Committee at Darul Noor, and asked if we want to partner with Near Shalom in the 1-year commitment of the Good Neighbors program. And we said yes. It was an easy yes. And so we filled out the application together, we sent it in, and after a couple of months, we got notice that we had been accepted. So with that, we assembled our teams. And so now I have a little WhatsApp of MAVs. MAV is abbreviation for Muslim Association of Virginia, MAV Refugee Committee. So we have a little WhatsApp. And Near Shalom assembled their team. And we had a training that gave us an overview of what was going on. And then once we got the news that the Nouri family from Afghanistan was arriving, then we had another meeting with Lutheran Refugee Services, where they really started drilling down about getting the apartment set up, furniture and stuff like that. And so both Near Shalom and Darul Noor worked on this together.
Debby Bruce on the board of Congregation Near Shalom. We are a small congregation of about between 60 and 70 families, not wealthy by any means. There's no way that we could have taken on this project by ourselves. And Darul Noor and Near Shalom have been kind of buddies since Darul Noor came to our area. We're sort of down the street from them. And it was natural for Rabbi Liz to start with them. My experience with this has been sort of on the month-to-month support of the family. The way we do it, if you want some nuts and bolts, is Rabbi Liz uses Sign Up Genius. We put it out for the congregation. We ask people to sign up. The two congregations kind of split the duties. First food was after we got the apartments, after we got the apartment furnished, the first necessity was food. And we split the duties a couple times a month for each congregation, and we had volunteers buy the food and deliver it to the family. Nouris showed up on our shores just about when COVID did. And so everything, all the plans that we made for welcoming them and supporting them and in all the ways that Shelley talked about were sort of demolished. and we had to come up with our own ways of doing it, but we did. And I hope the Nouris can speak to how successful the settlement was. But as the months went by and they had some income coming in, we switched from food to other kinds of support. We've continued, and we look forward to finishing up the year with some kind of celebration in another month or two.
Hi, this is Satar, son of Abdul Hamid Nouri, and I'm glad to hear. And actually, my father is at work, and my older brother is also at work, and me and my mom is here. And we arrived here. It was COVID-19, and it was a difficult situation to everyone. Actually, for us, we were at home without going anywhere. And at the first days of school, it was very difficult because I was new here, and then the lessons are in a different language from us, from our language. And nowadays it is good because we are 2 days at school and 2 days virtual, and it's going very well.
بله، ما اومدیم بسیار امرای ما کمک کردن و تالم کمک میکنن، ظرف آوردن و کفش آوردن دیگه، قالین آوردن و هر چی که لازم داشتیم بر ما آوردن.
Hi everyone. Yes, thank you. We were welcomed by the resettlement agency and also by the congregations. We were provided support, rental assistance, and also with the home setup, and home supplies were also provided to us by the congregations.
I just have a short story as far as accomplishments. So as Debbie was saying, one of the things, COVID hit, and so it took a little longer for Mr. Nouri to find a job because everything shut down. Therefore, during that time, near Shalom, every first and third weeks, they dropped off some groceries. And second and fourth, we actually at near Dar al-Noor, we have a program where you drive up, people could pop their trunk, and we put groceries in there. So I was bringing the food every second and fourth, and the advantage was I was getting to know the Nouri family, saying hi and watching their English grow. But once Mr. Nouri was able to get a job and start getting some paychecks, he was able to buy a used car, and so we got to the point where he met me at the masjid one Sunday, and we got in the line. He popped his trunk. They gave him the groceries, so he knew what was the procedure every second and fourth Sunday. And so that task was off my plate. So, but it was an accomplishment in that the Nouri family was becoming more self-sufficient as far as finding resources and utilizing the resources that are available here in Prince William County. Debbie, want to share your story?
At the very beginning, when the Nouri family first arrived, Dar al-Noor hosted a welcome dinner. So there was the Nouri family, many members of Dar al-Noor, some of whom could speak the Nouri's language, so there was a little bit of togetherness there. I couldn't speak the language at all, but everybody's smiles were welcoming and happy to see each other on both sides. And I've said this before, it made me think of my grandparents who came to this country when they were probably older teenagers with their parents in one case, and by himself in another case, and without support. They just came and did what they had to do. And it just was very satisfying to be part of this, to add to the picture that is our country. And So again, welcome, Nuris.
We got involved, I think we'd sort of let Lutheran Social Services know that we were interested in being a part of the program, I think in November of 2019. And we got word, I think fairly quickly in December, if I remember, that the Juro walls were here and were coming and were going to be resettled. And so we sort of kicked into gear on our end in order to help with their apartment. And so we also used Sign Up Genius, which was great, and immediately got that filled. It was, we were thankful that had, our congregation really responded. And it sort of speaks to why we're involved. Is one of the reasons is it's a core tenet of our faith to be a welcoming community to refugees and welcoming the stranger. And it's also a big part of Georgetown Presbyterian Church. We've been helping with refugees, I believe, since the 1950s. So this is something that we wanted to continue, and so really responded. So if I remember, we then we helped with the apartment settlement, I think, in the beginning of January, and we're working through signups into the end of December. It kind of fit perfectly with Christmas as sort of a gift, so that was great. And then we helped out with settlement, beginning of January. Yeah. And Jen, help me out here. Is there anything?
I just wanted to note that different from the previous conversation, we were on a different tier, the tier that Georgetown Presbyterian Church chose because it was sort of our first big support of a family. Was we chose to just do the apartment setup. So different than the previous conversation, we didn't have the year-long commitment of helping with services. We wanted to do this as a test drive to see, how our congregation was going to react and how they were going to support the program. So they really came through on the apartment setup, and then COVID hit. And I think some of our volunteers who helped to outfit the apartment got to know Arif and his wife. And so the support of the family has actually continued over this year, just because they had some needs and we had some interests. So it was sort of a natural fit that way. So unofficially, we've been in more contact, I think, than most groups that are on the tier. I don't know, Shelby, what tier are we?
You're technically level 3, but you've definitely helped in the family kind of beyond level 3. So, but officially on paper, level 3.
Yeah. I think we graduated to level 2. If that's how that worked. Which we were happy to do. We were excited to do this. This was sort of, we had hoped to get to level 1, and as Jen said, this was sort of our first foray, and it became more, which we were excited about. That's where we wanted to go. So throughout this year, we've continued to be in contact with Arif, and we've primarily had one contact person, Kim Sperduto, who's been the sort of go-between with the family, and it's worked out well. We've helped out with some medical care and some other tough issues, and we're happy to be there. So,
hi to everyone. This is Arif Girwal speaking, and thank you, Adrian, for inviting me to this call. I'm waving to everyone, so hope you can see me all. So what was your question again? So should I give my information about myself from the beginning, or there will be a specific question so I can answer?
Thank you so much. If you want to just share a little bit about your story and your arrival experience and how Adrian and his team kind of helped support your arrival.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank all of the team at LSS, Lord and Social Service. Through them, we were introduced to the Georgetown Presbyterian church. And when we first arrived, we just came here to the United States only with a few necessary stuff like clothes, wearing clothes and dresses. Without that, we didn't have anything special, like we didn't have furnitures, we didn't have home. Obviously, we don't have home because we gotta get on the rent, and other important stuff. So when we arrived here, we were introduced to the Lawton Social Services Office and LSS, and their staff that welcome us very warmly and with very kindness and generosity, and they did help us a lot with processing our documents and paying our rents and providing some other necessary stuff. And through this process, they did also introduce us to the Georgetown Presbyterian Church. And the team and the people from the Georgetown Presbyterian Church were very, very kind and generous, and they did support us a lot. And at that time, they were very supportive, and they did help us with enormous things like providing home stuff, especially furniture and setting up. And without their help, it wasn't possible to settle here in the United States. And as you know, every person who comes to this country, they don't have much to settle or to go with. So without their help and without their generosity and without their kind, it wasn't possible for us to make it till here.
That was a glowing review. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I would like also thank Mr. Adrian. I seen him after a long time. Yes, he was right in the January at the beginning of the year. At that time, luckily, there wasn't a COVID-19. And they did, Jan and Adrian and Mr. Kim from the Georgetown Presbyterian Church. He was their team head. He did help us a lot with enormous things. I don't go with details, but he did help us with the home setup. He did help us with other important stuff. And despite that, he did help us with the during COVID-19, when we were infected with the COVID-19. Unfortunately, he did come up and show up, and he was available there, and he did help us a lot, not just personally, with financial assistance also. I want to show you my wife here. She's also here aside.
Hello, everyone.
She's also appreciated, and she's grateful for your help and your generosity.
Yeah.
And she says, yes, she said before, without your help and generosity, it wasn't possible for us to make it till here, especially from the help of without the help of Georgetown Presbyterian Church team. Mm-hmm. Mr. Kim and his team, like Mr. Adrian and Jen and other people, generous people, if I have forgot their name. Mm-hmm. So forgive me for that. And these are the stuff that when we arrived first, that Georgetown Presbyterian Church provided us, like it was newly, and they did came here and they set up with us here, which was highly appreciated. This was the chair, and these were some kind of table or chair as well. So this was the table that they provide us. So on this table we now keep our TV. So you can see it wasn't possible without their special desk or whatever you call Maria or whatever you name it. and here are some couches. I'm showing you this thing because it's necessary to show you in this conference call. These are the stuff, and special I like this table, and they still I'm using it. It was new, and look at here the bookshelf that they provide us, and still we are using it. It was very helpful to us. And at the same time, I have put some stuff on mine today I bought, but the table and the chair that they did provide us, and some other stuff, some home appliances. Yeah, these are the stuff that they did provide us.
So actually, we have been able to adapt our GNP program so that this can be done completely virtually for the most part. So we do resettle families in Maryland and Northern Virginia. So that's typically where we see, that's where families are resettled and kind of typically where the resettlement happens. But congregations in DC can absolutely co-sponsor a family in those areas. And if people in your congregation have trouble kind of getting out of the city, we can work with you on kind of like virtual home setup options, a shopping spree where you can purchase items online to have them shipped to the family's apartment, and then engage in virtual kind of mentoring for the GNP journey. So I can definitely work with your congregation on that to get creative on how to make that work, but it's absolutely possible.
Over the past several days, we have seen a lot of refugees that were scheduled to travel. Unfortunately, their flight had to be canceled because there is a presidential determination signed yet. So the first hurdle we're going to need to overcome will be a new presidential determination that would reset those numbers to the expected much higher refugees numbers. Then it would take a little bit of time. I think a window of maybe 90 days. So I will say maybe the last quarter of this fiscal year, that means July through the end of September, might be the time where we may see that bulge or that increase in number of refugees. Because that window of 90 days is often what is needed for cases to be assured and to be resettled. Now, there unfortunately have been some cases that have gone through the entire clearance process, but because of the delay, may now have to go back and redo some of those clearances. So those create over time. So unfortunately, yeah. But the last quarter of this fiscal year, we expect those numbers to start inching up. And around September, the president will sign a new presidential determination that will set the numbers for 2022. And that's really when we expect those numbers to go up much greater, because the infrastructure would have been put in place and many of the processes or the administration that is needed overseas and domestically will then have been in place for us to switch gear to much higher refugee numbers.
So we see families as small as 1 or 2 and as large as 8, 10, sometimes more than that. I would say that, and Mamadou, feel free to jump in, but I would say that our two, like kind of the heartbeat of our resettlement program is really self-sufficiency and integration. So we really try to give our families the tools that they need and the resources that they need in the community to be economically self-sufficient as quickly as possible. And then the kind of flip side of that, kind of longer term piece of that is really integrating holistically, in the community and being able to get the support that they need kind of longer term. So I would say, like, for larger families, I think that is a challenge. This is an expensive area to live, as we all know. And so being able to provide for a greater, for a bigger family can be an added burden for, parents who are being resettled. But I would say we do the best that we can, and we rely on a lot of community partners and GNP partners as well to really help build those self-sufficiency outcomes. And then a lot of clients are eligible for up to 5 years of employment support. So we really try to support clients towards those goals.
Hi, it's Karen Green. I just wanted to say, Temple Shalom and Chevy Chase, we took a family early on, probably the end of 2016. And so in response to the self-sufficiency question, they became self-sufficient fairly rapidly, but unlike Mohammed, they're not SIVs. They had middle school educations, and the husband doesn't speak English. And when COVID happened, the factory where he worked closed. So, just like any sort of low income, low education family, they were hit very hard by COVID. So although they have 4 kids and they did reach independence, they have now been, unfortunately, thrust back into a situation of real hardship. So just to add that in the mix, if you have families that have sort of other educational and linguistic disadvantages, it can be very tough.
I would just like to help answer the question about what were some of the other levels. So prior to Near Shalom and Darul Noor partnering to do a 1-year level of support, Darul Noor had done several food drives because there are people in our congregation that still had we have a good number of people who are Afghanis, and so they have relatives who are refugees. And so some of the case managers, when people were coming in, supplying I know one time we supplied pots, pans, and things like that for kitchen, brooms, dustpans, and what other time we did like a food drive. And all that takes from your congregation is a week or 2 before you're going to collect the stuff. So we have prayers on Fridays. So 2 weeks out, we gave the date that we were collecting things, and we let people know it was just that day. All right. And then on that day, we had table ready, a sign ready, drop off products here. And we had a list the week before of what you could drop off, laundry soap, food, canned food, not stuff that was going to spoil. Brooms, dustpans, trash cans, things like that. And people, blankets, clean or gently used. So people brought them, and then I got some young guys to load my car up, put the seat down, just load it up, and then I would drive it to a particular location. So that's something that only takes a week or 2 of your time as far as advertising. And I just suggest the day that you do it, you pack the stuff up that very day and take it. So in general, it takes a step of courage to do this, but you need, we learn, trust your congregation. Your congregation, you'll be amazed of people who will donate. They have things in their garage. Just on my block, I mentioned to my neighbors what Near Shalom and Darul Noor were doing. And my neighbor had a dining room table set. All right. Another neighbor had chest of drawers. So people in your congregation will rise to the occasion, and you'll find they're very generous. You just need to coordinate and get people with trucks and young guys with muscles, or young girls with muscles, to help move any furniture or anything if you do one of the setups. Thank you.
In addition to us gathering home supplies and other items, we had people who wanted to donate money. So at the, right before we did the apartment setup, a group of us went to IKEA and filled that, basically bought everything else on the list with the donations of money. So it doesn't have to only be, all of donated gifts or all of donated money. It can be a mishmash. And if you have people that can go and buy those other items, that works too.
Yeah, we had people who were willing to donate but couldn't get the food to the Noories. We had people who could carry things to the Noories but couldn't donate. And then we had one woman that lives in Marshall, Virginia, which is about an hour and a half away from the Noories, and found her way to the Noories with a car full of food one day. So So trust your congregation absolutely, and you'll get all kinds of combinations that work.